So in 1973, I'm 24 years old. I live in the city of Greensburg, which was a county seat of Westmoreland County. It was in the late 60s, I believe it was probably about 1969, one of the first UFO cases I investigated. I remember getting a call from the police about a daylight sighting from multiple witnesses along, I believe it was Route 22, of two very large cigar-shaped objects hovering at treetop level along the highway. I went out to interview various people, and it was at that point, as I was gathering information, that people began to talk to me about things they had been seeing along the Chestnut Ridge.
Although Stan Gordon has spent most of his life investigating all kinds of strange phenomena, he's best known for his work as a UFO researcher. Stan's work in the UFO field goes back to his time looking into the Kecksburg crash of 1965. In that time, he's cataloged the strange and constantly evolving reports of unidentified craft in the skies over Pennsylvania. In the state, the Chestnut Ridge stands as the center point of unusual activity. As with all reports of various phenomena that Stan has investigated, he's keenly aware of the data. Locations, times, and types of UFO craft are just a few of the points that investigators of the unknown keep track of. On the Ridge, this holds especially true.
We've got a lot of similarity in descriptions of the UFO sightings. And then there's some differences as well, but the majority of reports, of course, back in the early years, we were getting a lot of reports of the big discs. Back in the late 60s, for example, around here, we had a lot of reports of very large, solid, sometimes battleship gray, metallic, big dome-shaped objects, some with portholes or windows in them. Some of them very low to the ground, even reports of them on the ground.
We get reports of people either driving, and it could be anywhere. It could be a backcountry road, it could be a main populated road, and they happen to look up and see something in the sky they can't explain. It catches their attention. They'll either pull over or stop.
And then as years evolved, we began to get more and more reports of the big triangular objects, of the very large metallic cylindrical or cigar-shaped objects that continue still to be reported. Now in more recent years, we're getting reports of these very large metallic rectangular objects that are being reported. And some of these have been daylight sightings, very significant reports.
There's been cases where there have been very low flying to the road where they have no problem telling what it was. It wasn't an aircraft that we're familiar with, an airplane or UFO or anything like that. It was something they'd never seen before. It happens, I guess, anywhere, really. It could happen anywhere, any time of the day. People are reporting seeing things in the sky.
A lot of people talking about UFO sightings, they hear of the typical UFO shapes. But going back to the 60s, and I've had many cases like this around the Chestnut Ridge, these are cases that I call the mini UFOs. These are generally anywhere from a few inches to a foot in diameter. Sometimes they're transparent, sometimes they're bright and illuminated, sometimes they're more metallic, sometimes you can see through them. What's interesting is that they've approached people very closely, and they've actually entered people's cars and homes through open windows. And then they float around and go back out.
The terms UFO and flying saucer are often used interchangeably, but in the skies above the Chestnut Ridge, saucer-shaped craft are only part of the story. In 1973 alone, witnesses reported seeing capsule-shaped objects with red and white lights that flashed in an alternating pattern, a noiseless, transparent arrowhead-shaped craft moving in a straight line, a group of dome-shaped objects 50 feet in diameter with luminous windows, a 36-foot spinning top which lit up the area with a burning white glow, a sighting made even stranger by the observance of a beam of light or a rope dangling down, at the end of which was a figure of indeterminate origin. Oval and cigar-shaped objects have been well represented, often emitting a kaleidoscope of colors. Still other eyewitnesses have told of heart-shaped objects encircled with red lights, floating Christmas tree ornament shapes, and railroad boxcar-sized and shaped craft streaking silently through the air. One commonality observed in many UFO sightings is the draining of power sources. While this may seem like a more recent aspect to the phenomena, it seemed to peak in the 1970s, when not just UFO, but strange creature reports in the area seemed to center around electrical activity related to the sightings. However, in more recent years, these types of reports have resurfaced.
One of my favorite reports in more recent years happened not that far from the ridge, a number of miles away in this general area of Westmoreland County, but this happened on Route 30 in North Huntington Township. It was June 1st, 2013, around 10 o'clock at night. It was a major 4-lane highway, and this woman who did not believe in UFOs and her 3-year-old child were coming out of a convenience store and heading home. She's on the cell phone, and all of a sudden, she has to stop right in the middle of Route 30. And she said to me, I couldn't believe there's cars way ahead of me and cars behind me, but nobody close by at the time. She said, the reason I stopped right in the middle of the road was, here's this huge, solid, metallic, rectangular object hovering about 60 feet away, taking up all 4 lanes of the highway. It's making no sound. The lighting configuration is completely unlike navigational lighting on aircraft. And her little young child yells, Mommy, flying iPad in the sky. And she has to pass underneath it to get home. So she loses her cell phone signal. When she goes underneath it, all the electronics in her dash goes off. So the radio goes off the air, her clock goes off, and she tries to take a picture with her iPhone, and it would not let her go into the photo mode. As she's riding down the road, all the electronics comes back on. Well, as in so many cases, she now believes in UFOs. I've always said the best witnesses are people who never would believe that UFOs or Bigfoot, for example, would exist until they had their own personal encounter.
While the shifting face of ufology in this particular area might seem difficult to grasp, it's just one piece of a puzzle that takes different shapes day by day. The Chestnut Ridge isn't solely visited by any one type of UFO, just as it isn't frequented by any one type of unexplained category of activity. It's all-encompassing. John Keel referred to places like the Chestnut Ridge as window areas, and Stan Gordon is the type of person who investigates reports in this region in order to learn what's on the other side of that window. As time goes on, and the search for answers becomes more muddied with phenomena that seems to almost mock the researcher, the question becomes, do we even want to know what lurks on the other side?